Welcome, everyone. This is the PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating podcast. Here we chat about all things boating with marine industry professionals and enthusiasts who spend all the time they can out on the water.
Hi, this is Tonia Becker, and I'm your host for today's episode of PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating. If you're thinking about buying a boat, this will come as no shock, but boats are expensive, and the decision should not be taken lightly. I'm here today with Chris Judd, a senior salesperson at Naples Boat Mart in Naples, Florida. Naples Boat Mart is a Grady White, Hurricane, Key West, Seakeeper, Yamaha, Mercury, and Continental trailers dealer. Chris has been in the marine industry for more than 29 years, so he was exactly the person I wanted to talk to you about this topic. So thanks for being here, Chris.
Thank you, Tonya. Glad to be here.
So I think the first question a person shopping for a boat should ask, particularly if they're new to boat ownership, is if they're really committed to boat ownership. I know that you do this every day, but how do you advise people to think about this question?
Well, we're fortunately, or geographically, we're in a part of the world where there's a lot of boats. So there's opportunities for anybody, whether you've spent time on the water or not, there's opportunities to go out there and kind of test the waters per se. Whether it be, it's highly unlikely that somebody doesn't have a friend or a family member or somebody out there that has links to somebody on the water. So having the ability to get out there in kind of a no-cost format like that, just to experience it is probably my number one step. For the rare occurrences that doesn't happen, then we are fortunate to have rental fleets down here and the ability to go out and rent a boat for half a day or a full day. It might not be the boat of choice, but at least it's an opportunity to go out and play for a while. And experience what Southwest Florida is all about on the water. Beyond that, there's one other step that used to be a little more popular that is probably, I'm not going to say fallen off the map, but it is definitely, the interest has been curbed quite a bit, are some of the boat clubs. So there have been various boat clubs over the years where you can join for what used to be, which is the problem now, what used to be a pretty nominal fee. You could sign on to these boat clubs. You would have access to a variety of different sizes and styles. You had a relatively tame monthly investment, these model fees that they would charge. And it gave somebody the opportunity. That used to be a pretty popular choice there because it gave somebody the opportunity with no long-term commitment to play for a year. You didn't have the normal handling or say ownership and carrying costs of owning a boat. You got done and you threw the keys at them and you went home. So all that being said, the one thing about that process that has kind of curbed it a little bit more is just how those costs have gone up pretty substantial amounts. So that really kind of defers most people back to options 1 and 2 that I was talking about going out with a friend, renting a boat, but ultimately just a few trips out there. It doesn't take long. More people really get hooked, and they're ready to make a decision sometime soon after usually.
I know we're going to talk about this a little later in our chat, but I have a couple of boating friends that are avid boaters, and they specifically troll for basically brand new boats that like a grandmother bought for her grandchildren, or people that really underestimated what was involved in boating. In the boat, a very expensive piece of fiberglass is sitting in a barn somewhere. It can be
Absolutely. That's always a slight possibility. People will try it and you just never know. I mean, for some unexpected reason, the interest can cease. Though it not be common, it can happen.
So the next question, and I think to your point, people that have experienced boating either on friends' boats or maybe they've owned boats previously or boat clubs or what have you, is the next question is what type of boat should a buyer purchase? How do you help people through that question?
I'm not going to say there's not a science to that answer because obviously there's an infinite number of bits and pieces and criteria that go into the decision. But ultimately, for us here in Southwest Florida, it's probably a little easier than it might be in some other areas. And the reason I say that is because the things that we have to do on the water down here in Southwest Florida, we're fortunate that we have so many things to do within close proximity to us, whether it be hitting the local restaurants, the beaches, the sunset cruise, the various entertainment on the water. That is all within a close proximity to us. If we want to go, if fishing is more the interest, then we have the opportunity to travel some relatively short distances as well. Specifically 10,000 Islands, hugely popular and just an amazing spot to fish from. Or those the lesser interest in many instances is the offshore fishing. So all that being said, regardless of what you want to do, it's all within reach to us, and we take it for granted that's just not, it doesn't happen everywhere. So it typically starts with a quick understanding of the division of recreational, or what I call day boating, and or fishing. So I've said it for a long time, and I've always used this the pie chart discussion. It's something that I have really kind of pressed on my staff over the years, and that is it's very simple to start to understand how somebody's going to use the boat. Is it primarily you start if it's say primarily fishing and offshore fishing and backwater fishing, and breaking it down into those percentages. If somebody tells me, Chris, we're going to be 75% fishing and then maybe 25% of recreational and day boating, then that will lead me towards the boats that are more in tune with the fishing segment, the center consoles, those models. And then we can kind of fine tune size based on what style of fishing they're doing. Statistically, and that's a dangerous word to use, because just because it works for somebody doesn't mean it works for everybody. Down here, the more the day boat segment is the more popular choice for us. The beaches, the restaurants, the sunset cruise, take the family out for just a miscellaneous run on the water without looking to go into the backwaters to fish or offshore to fish. Those are what I'll call the day boats. So once we've determined how somebody's going to use the boat, then that really will start to direct us into at least a design, and then ultimately exactly how they're going to use that boat, and we can start kind of whittling down what sizes make sense. Based on, are you going to trailer the boat? Are you going to keep it on a lift behind a residence? Are you going to try to store it in a dry rack facility? There's other criteria that start to we kind of fine tune everything. So by the time everything is said and done, the process can really help someone make an educated decision. I am a huge proponent in all industries of relying on an educated, reliable, and reputable dealer, whatever you're buying. And the word salesman, that's not an easy one. You gotta work beyond that, because and I'm as guilty as anybody else. You don't automatically trust the person in front of you as to the accuracy of their information or the fairness in their pricing, and I get that. So that's why I stress to everybody, you got to connect with a reputable and trustworthy dealer with a history, and that just eliminates so much of it. And the long and short of it is it's pretty easy to finally get to that point of what boat's right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm there in Southwest Florida. I think a lot of people have much more experience, like the per capita more experience on the water than perhaps I'm in Chicago, and there's a lot of people that don't really have any experience boating, or maybe they had maybe they had experience on a small lake growing up with their father or grandfather or whoever. And I think here in this Great Lakes region, people often, you have people from all over the Midwest coming to Chicago and so forth. And I think people sometimes often underestimate the Great Lakes.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. I joke about that all the time. There's some nasty waters up there.
Yeah. Lake Michigan is not the pond behind your grandfather's house. It's serious, and so I've seen people underestimate it too often, really, sometimes tragically. Part of the decision making that hopefully boat dealers in the Midwest are having with their customers.
And I think part of that also is education. One of the things that we really stress down here, because we offer, I mean, we really get into some pretty large vessels, up to the 45-foot class. So it is, the education part of it is in our opinion, imperative as well, because we can't just, ethically, we just can't set somebody free with something without some guidance, whether it be putting them into the proper hands of some of our local boaters education classes and that kind of stuff. And then ultimately, at least, the guidance of our staff and our captains when we physically deliver something to somebody. So yeah, the education is a huge one as well.
This might not be the most fun topic, but I think obviously it's important for most people to set a budget. And buyers need to think more about them more than just their monthly boat payment. I mean, how should boat buyers think about, setting a budget and the total cost of ownership of a boat that they might want to purchase?
I think I surprise people often when I really take seriously the budgeting of a boat purchase. And no one should be the type that is pushing someone potentially beyond that budget. We're talking about a recreational item, regardless if it's a 15-foot boat or a 50-foot boat. We're talking about recreation, fun. It's not a car. It's not a house. It's not a staple item in our life where we can get a little bit a little crazier with those purchases. So on the boating side, again, being a recreational item, I tend to really agree with the budget. So here in Southwest Florida, we're fortunate to be around a community that has really done well and has statistically done well in life. So the budgeting is not always as much of a huge dot on their list, but it's always there on mine. For those that are looking to kind of not go too crazy, then I always promote the financing. The financing of a boat is at times people look at that as a means of someone trying to get them to spend more on on something than they were actually anticipating, when in reality it's not. The marine lenders that we work hand in hand with, they really they structure these loans in a fashion to where it keeps the monthly investment tame. So we don't have a $1,000 a month boat payment where, God forbid, if things got a little off kilter and we needed to dial back the monthly expenses. We're not, we're in a position to do so, and without having to give an arm and a leg every month. So on the marine financing, the simple interest, no prepayment penalty loans, and also lengthier terms, give somebody the ability to take the term of the loan out a little stronger, but not be in a position where they just never catch up. You never reach the point of nearing payoff. That's not how it's structured. I do like the idea of the lengthier terms because it gives somebody the opportunity to, again, kind of lessen up that monthly payment. But then maybe when things have returned or there's a surplus in the account, then you can start to plug back into that principal amount. And obviously we're going to see the light at the end of the tunnel there. So financing has been a strong one regardless, because even though somebody can walk in the door and write a check for the purchase, which is wonderful, they are financially savvy enough to understand that, if I can make, if I have investments and if my cash and my monies are out there in circulation making me a viable return, then why would I pull that out on what they'll refer to as a depreciating asset, obviously. Keep the monies in place, making them a strong return. And then, just on average, depending upon the pricing of it all, interest rates are going to be in the, at the time, 5s and 6s. So, the ability to make a better return is keeping people also considering the financing as well. So, all in all, it's just between the just focusing on what you can afford. As a recreation, I never want anybody to get themselves in an uncomfortable position, because the boating in itself is supposed to be enjoyable and everything about it. And if it becomes a financial burden that you're worried about, and that's a scary one, and I don't like to see people go down that road. For any of us that went through maybe some previous economic adjustments over the years, it was pretty painful to watch that happen a few times. So I'm gonna say it's my job to, if at all possible, help prevent that.
What for people that in other parts of the country that maybe don't have as access to as quite as much money as many of the people in Naples do. What is the guide for your monthly boat payment? Approximately how much should people budget for? And I know it varies a lot, depending upon a lot of factors. But how much should they budget in addition to that boat payment? On
average, I mean, everybody's going to have to determine based on their own monthly expenses, exactly what they can afford. But to get an idea of what it should cost, the math that we've used for a lot of years is somewhere in the range of about $10 per $1,000 financed. So if somebody wants to go out there and find a $20,000 boat or something like that, then you can probably anticipate in some of the lengthier terms, in that $200, maybe a little bit more range. So what can I afford? That's a question you'll never hear me answer because everybody is different. We're fortunate that we at Naples Boat Mart, at least, we represent, and many dealers should and likely try to do the same. We try to represent a brand, a product mix that can handle or at least accommodate a variety of different people. So if somebody wants to come in, and it's great for us also because it gives us the opportunity to test the waters, maybe on a smaller boat, maybe on a whether it be used or new, give somebody the opportunity to start with something they're comfortable with. And it's something, the term that we hear in our industry for years is the 2-foot-itis, sometimes more. Somebody buys a boat, starts out, and then next thing you know, over the course of the next season or two, they fall in love with what our waters offer. Maybe they want to start venturing out a little bit more at a distance or accommodating more people on board, and it goes up a few feet. But we're fortunate that we have, our product mix ranges anywhere from 18 to 45 feet. So I love the fact that also promotes some repeat business. Somebody can start in a smaller size, maybe a smaller price point, whatever the case is, and over the course of years, they can graduate into different sizes. So that's you start with what you are financially comfortable with, obviously our budget, and then also obviously what you're physically comfortable with, what you can manage, what you can handle, whether it be by yourself or with a co-captain. So yes, it all starts with a budget, and I'm a very just a huge proponent of that.
I think a line item, to use an accounting term, that people kind of sometimes overlook is, and it's not an issue if you can store the boat at your home, in your garage, or behind your house, or whatever. But in some markets in particular, storage can be quite scarce and in some cases quite pricey. So that's something that people need to explore before they buy, I would think.
Today, more so than ever, and quite honestly, well in advance of that decision. The storage really should be hashed out because, if you're trailering a boat, no harm. If you live at a residence on the water with a lift or a wet slip behind it, no harm. Down here, there is a large portion of our community that relies on the dry rack storage offering. That's where we have hit a wall to a degree because the availability of that stuff is obviously far less than what it used to be. And quite honestly, that was a problem more than just that problem started more than this last year or two of oddness going on in the world. Those facilities, based on the continued success of our marine industry and sales, those facilities have continued to fill up and fill up and fill up. And 5 years ago, we knew we were approaching that, but we just didn't. You didn't want to say it. We didn't want to talk about it. We knew it was coming, and it's here now. Many of the local facilities are at a point where they're basically collecting names with just a backup list there. And it's just taken people a lot longer to obviously get that opportunity in place. Why is that not hugely detrimental for us just yet? Is because one of the side effects of what's been going on for us over the last 18 months is that the amount of orders that are going in place. Ordering boats is something that has gone in a very different direction. So if somebody orders a boat, I just did this yesterday. A client ordered a brand new boat for me that is sadly based on the volume of boats in front of him and our load that we're tackling here. He won't have a boat until about the October timeframe of next year, which will be a 2023 model year. He was fine with that, completely okay with that, but ultimately that was another situation where he needed to find storage. So the time that it takes to get that, it made him okay with the decision. He knew he had to wait. So it's that is something I refer to the old adage. Everybody says it. Let's keep the cart behind the horse. And we've had people get very excited, very motivated, and looking to do something very quickly, and then just to the point where you're about to start, transacting. The question of if it hasn't happened, it should have happened well before. But the question of, okay, well, by the way, where's the boat going to go? And then if they don't know, then it's time to tap the brakes and reassess the situation.
So, I'd imagine, in addition to thinking about the storage issue, that you recommend buyers familiarize themselves with the ins and outs of the boat they buy, and, including being aware of the boat's maintenance schedule and so forth. What are some of the tools that boat buyers can use to get up to speed and track their maintenance schedule and track the things that they need to do to care for their boat properly?
There is the one thing that I am another just you hate to think that there are trustworthy sources out there, but as in any industry, there are, and you need to do your due diligence and in your research as to the dealer that you're working with, not only from a sales perspective but also from a service perspective. We at Naples Boat Mart and a lot of the what I'll say the quality dealers out there take the service side just as equally important as the sales side. I was trained in a mindset that sales makes service and service makes sales in either order. So once you have you either have a client base out there that hears about your dealership and how well you take care of your customers from a service and maintenance perspective, and ultimately that earns you maybe a shot at earning their business on the sales side. And again, vice versa. You start on the sales side, you take care of your customers after the fact, provide all the resources to them and maintain them throughout the ownership of that boat. And ultimately that earns you the repeat business or referrals and so on and so forth. So from a servicing perspective, it is imperative that you connect and create a good working relationship with a reliable dealer. Again, a quality dealer with some history that's been around long enough, because it literally takes 30 seconds, if that, to jump online, do your Google searches, do your Google review searches, and you're going to quickly see, who's who and who's not, because it literally just takes such a brief amount of time for somebody to get online and share their story, good or bad. So point in that is, from the servicing perspective, one of the most important resources there is just creating a good working relationship with your local service center. In large counties like ourselves, like Carter County in Naples, Florida, and Marco, we're fortunate I'll say the retail customers out there are fortunate to have such a strong number of what I'll call reputable dealers here in town, representing various products, various engine brands, all that stuff. So to me, number one is truly the dealer network. Second of all, the technology in these later years has gotten more and more impressive. I love the fact that, and I'll use Yamaha's there's one of their resources to us as an example. They've got an app called My Yamaha Outboards available on the Apple, obviously the App Store, and Google Play. So on there, that gives you the ability to kind of track everything about your engine, the preventative maintenance schedules. It will provide you with some valuable information from the manufacturer as well, God forbid there's any service bulletins or anything out there that is announced. You see all this information, but ultimately it's your own little database of information about your engine. It helps you track everything that you need to, including the service schedules. That in itself is a big plus. The engines themselves are set up with instrumentation to actually notify you of it's time for service, your service schedule as well. So, this is all obviously later additions to some of the later technology and not something that would have been, say, 10 years ago. But, the technology of the new products has also taken the novice boater to a quite a bit of better position on the comfort of knowing what needs to happen, when it needs to happen. And then obviously you're relying on the services of your local dealer to make that happen.
Yeah, one of the things, I'm glad you brought up the My Yamaha Outboards app. One of the things that it's just a great app, but I love that it allows you to track your own maintenance, for DIYers, as well as communicate with your dealer. And I think that's incredibly valuable. So even if for boaters that do some maintenance and things themselves, they can still readily communicate with their dealer for things they need the dealer service to accomplish. And I think that's so incredibly valuable. And I know there's other tools like that out there on the market.
I think the technology, just everything about today's technology is impressive. Those that are just now starting boating, maybe they didn't experience some of the older stuff. Maybe they won't appreciate it as much as the rest of us. But it's definitely it's taken ownership to a totally new level because the reliability, the longevity, the efficiency, everything about this product today just keeps people comfortable and on that same boat, that same engine for years to come, and not looking for a change here in the upcoming seasons.
Yeah, people that are brand new to boating may not appreciate the oil-stained steno notebooks that people would bring into their dealer.
Yeah, I laugh a little bit because there are still a lot of do-it-yourselfers out there, and there are still things. Don't get me wrong. Like even on that My Yamaha Outboards app, there are some things that even Yamaha is willing to educate people on maybe the things that you can do on your own, the do-it-yourselfer stuff. I think I am pretty well versed in a lot of this stuff and done a lot of various mechanical work on boat engines and a lot of other stuff. But I give our guys here in service a lot of credit because this latest degree of technology, I'm not confident with disassembling much on these engines these days. So, but there are things that can be done, and but I like to leave those to the professionals.
So at the outset of the pandemic, the demand for boats obviously went through the roof. That's been great in some ways, but has caused some supply issues that are not that comfortable for either dealers or for customers in a lot of cases. How it's changing boat buying. It's how are both dealers and buyers adopting, and what changes do you expect to last for the long term?
So yeah, there without question when this. And it's like I almost remember it's like I feel like I remember the day. But ultimately, we all we panicked, obviously as we should. Things got very odd and very unsure as to what the future was going to hold, specifically in the recreational industry. So shortly thereafter, quickly people raced to the water, and their other recreations were gone almost instantaneously. You couldn't go out to dinner. You couldn't congregate. You couldn't travel. You couldn't fly. You couldn't do anything. So it not only brought our anyone that had been considering buying a boat, it brought them to the table pretty quickly, but it also brought everybody else to the table. So in-stock inventories disappeared within a very short amount of time. Shortly thereafter, we started relying on inbound inventories. So boats that were already what I'll refer to as build slots that were basically there and ready to make your choice of colors and options, all the miscellaneous. Focusing on inbound boats, sold those out, and then went into basically what I'll refer to as fresh orders. So that we were very lucky. And I couldn't be more thankful when I say this. Our little area, I'll say much of Florida, is populated by a very strong seasonal representation. So there's a large number of people here in the state that are what I'll call the 6 month on, 6 month off. So those that had not made their decision, they'd spent the season doing due diligence and research and touching and feeling and visiting with the dealer and everything. And if they had not made their decision by, say, somewhere in the March to April timeframe, then every year we would see this just exorbitant spike in sales orders specifically, because they would go ahead and basically we'd collect deposit, we would make the boat theirs, again, their colors, choices, options, all that stuff, and then shortly thereafter they'd be heading north. So we'd order a boat, have it available for say the fall delivery. Though that time frame is a little longer now than it used to be, it's a process that we've always had in place down here. So we were again very fortunate based on our location and our seasonality down here. We were lucky that how the pandemic really put a twist on sales. It didn't kill us, business wise, obviously. It was a unique twist. It's put a unique twist on how we sell now, because the ability to walk into a dealer and touch and feel and talk about a boat that is standing right there in front of you is almost gone. I've said this, and it's a very odd thing to say, but likely this model year will be the first in my 29 years of doing this that we're probably not going to have an inventory. So I'm going to have to show somebody a client's boat. We're going to have to, as boats kind of roll in and out of the property here for preventative maintenance and service, at least invite somebody in to say, hey, you can stop by and take a look at this one while it's here. Just for the visual sake. So it's to say that it's put a twist on how we sell is obviously an understatement. But I do truly and sincerely, I have a real soft spot for the dealers out there that don't have the luxury of such a seasonal interest, and that people that receive that ordering of boats, it just doesn't happen always. So we're lucky.
I mean, that all makes tons of sense. It's interesting times, to say the least. So before I let you go, a question not related to boat purchasing or boat selling. Where are your favorite places to boat, Chris, or your favorite place? Do you have any favorites?
I do. There is a location that me and my family have frequented for hundreds of times, to probably put it lightly. Cape Romano is, if anybody looks for an interesting story, do a Google search of the Dome homes at Cape Romano. And long story short, years ago we had, and I forget which event it was, but it was a hurricane or a very nasty tropical storm that passed through. And this was a gentleman that built homes on a beach, and at the time, they were far enough away from the beach line where it should have been safe. So a very impressive design, these large domes. Everything was very green in design. Everything was operating off of a combination, I believe, of solar and generator and everything. It was an island. There was no access to it. So sadly, one of the things that he did not obviously factor into his research was the erosion that could happen in any major event like that. So today, what remains of those three domes, which were hundreds of yards off of the beach, are now close to 100 yards in the Gulf. So the remainder of what he built is literally visually exposed there. Aside from that, the whole area down there, beautiful, just miles of just pristine beaches, not a lot of traffic. It's one of the hot spots that I love to go to, where we just disappear. So it's not all. I'm not as interested in being in the 100 boat cluster as I used to be. So it's a fun spot to go to.
No, I'm with you on that, friend. The more solitude, the better.
Yes.
So. Thanks so much for being here today, Chris. And thanks for listening to all the audience out there. And most importantly, happy boating.
I sincerely appreciate it, Tonia. It was a real pleasure, and I enjoyed the time.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating podcast. Is it almost time for routine maintenance on your outboard or Mercruiser marine engine? Check out our easy-to-use maintenance kits at PartsVu.com. And for free shipping, use the coupon code PVTalksBoating, a special perk for our podcast listeners. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram for boating knowledge, to keep in touch with the PartsVu community, and for special sales and promotions. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and check out the show notes for the coupon code just mentioned, more information about PartsVu and the products we offer, as well as our boating blog, the PartsVu Xchange. And a big thanks to Min for performing the original music featured within this podcast.